Sports Scope, the most influential sports talk show in the nation.
What is today, the 19th?
Stay tuned for updates and great sports content.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sports Scope. I'm your host, Robert Butler. Got a big show with you for tonight. A lot of information coming in so fast I really can't keep up with it all. Looks like the Will Levis era has officially begun. I'll explain why that. I wasn't really sure that was going to be the case, but according to Mike Vrabel, it's his job pretty much for the remainder of the season here. Plus, thoughts on last night's game. There's some red flags with Antonio Pierce that one of my guests talked about last year. A formidable, credible guest. I'll talk about that. And, of course, Mark Davis with the Raiders. I'll give you my Power 5. There's some news on the Michigan thing. I'll touch on that. A few screenshots of news and updates around the NFL. Carson Wentz back in the league. Martavis Bryant. Haven't heard that name in a long time. He's on the Dallas Cowboys practice squad and more. But first, let's go ahead and take our first and only break. And I'll be back here in 49 seconds. We'll hit the ground running here on Sports Scope. Hello, Sports Scope followers. The program has seen tremendous growth since going 5 days a week. I just wanted to thank everybody for your cash contributions and sharing the program with friends and families. Just a reminder, if you want to contribute to the program, go to the Cash App, the cash sign, and Sports Scope. There are other ways to contribute to the program listed at the bottom of the screen. If you want to advertise on the program, go to Sports, that is Sports with an S, another S, Scope, SKOPE, at gmail.com, just like it's listed at the bottom of the screen. Thank you and enjoy the program. All righty then. Okay, let's start with last night's game. The Jets and the Chargers, this is the two teams I imagine in the way that they're currently constructed in the offseason. This is how I expected this game to be played the very second Rodgers got knocked out of the game, and in week 1, September 11th. And my preseason prediction for the Chargers was going to be the 1 seed because of their talent. You saw their talent. You saw the talent on both sides of the ball. That's the way I thought going back to August, September, to when I put the prediction, that's what I thought the Chargers would be, okay? And, of course, before the game, I picked the Jets to win because we saw the Chargers getting ran on by people, a lot of penalties, missed clock management by Brandon Staley, players just underachieving on both sides of the football, okay? And, of course, that wasn't the case. The Jets are like the New England team, you know. Before we ended the program, I talked about, hey, look, the Chargers ran a touchdown back. Everything has to go almost perfect. And Robert Saleh said today, you can't just put all the blame on Zach Wilson there for the Jets. But kind of like the Patriots, for the Jets to win, everything around Zach Wilson has to go perfectly. Great field position. Defense has to be playing over their heads, flying off the ball. Special team. Breece Hall has to explode. A basic draw has to be 25, 30 yards. A lot of intermeeting. Every little detail has to be perfect, unlike a Kansas City with a Patrick Mahomes or a Tom Brady back with New England, or even a Joe Burrow team. But in this case, the offense, I mean, it's unwatchable, man. I mean, the Jets are just he can't even complete an out in some of these. They get 8 sacks on Zach Wilson, 2 fumbles lost. I mean that's as bad as it gets right there. And you want to go back to the other side, the Chargers, they've won 2 straight now. Now they have they've won 2 straight over the Bears and of course over the Jets. I thought the Jets was a pretty impressive win. It was on the road. This team did beat the Eagles, for better or for worse. They did beat the Eagles. The Jets beat the Eagles. They did beat the Bills in week 1, for better or worse. Yeah, they were blown out by the Cowboys as well. But my thing is that it seems like after that Kansas City loss, we're going back 3 weeks. Talk about the Chargers here, okay? Go back to that Kansas City loss. You just got to wonder if they had a grievances thing. And I'm going to talk about the word grievance here in a minute with a soundbite for the Raiders. But you're just wondering if the locker room had something like this, maybe a players-only meeting we don't know about, where you're finally seeing Joey Bosa, Asante Samuel, Khalil Mack, Derwin, these guys either high draft picks or big contract guys, 3 of the 4 big contract guys. I want to say Samuel was a earlier round draft pick. A lot of expected of him. His dad played in the NFL, Asante Samuel Sr. And you're just wondering if mainly these guys had that come to Jesus, because they played great defense the last 2 weeks. I know it's been the Bears and the Jets, but they're NFL teams. They have been there's communication on defense. Again, they had 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. They're rallying to the ball. They've played well. They have played well, and you get a feeling that something in that locker room after that game where they simply just didn't look good. I mean, it's one thing to lose to Kansas City. It's another thing to lose to Kansas City in the shape and form and fashion they have, since they were so familiar with that Chiefs team, because it's a divisional rival. Something has came over them. I'm not sure how long it'll last. And as far as the Jets are concerned, going back to the Jets, yeah, Aaron Rodgers throwing the football at the 50-yard line. You got to see how that works out. But essentially, they're a team that they know they need another quarterback. They know they need a young quarterback. They're going to have to do something with Wilson at the end of the season. They're going to have to, because Rodgers, he'd be lucky to play 1 year, if not, 2 years max? I think he'll play next year, Rodgers. But you just don't know what they're going to do. They'll probably try to sieve up that offensive line, and maybe they'll draft a later round quarterback, or maybe they will go after another free agent. But I don't know how much that'll work. Well, for one thing, Ryan Tannehill is going to be available. Ryan Tannehill's days as a Titan are just about over with. Okay, if you all haven't seen the headlines today, Will Levis, he's been named a starter going forward, according to Mike Vrabel. He has been, this is what he says. Vrabel today, when speaking to the media on Tuesday, announced that rookie quarterback Will Levis will be the starter for the remainder of the season, replacing Ryan Tannehill. And I've been saying this for weeks now. You just got to wonder why they just simply didn't move off Tannehill in the offseason and go on and let Levis and Malik Willis battle it out in camp and be like 3. Think about it this way, folks. Be like 3 of the 4 teams that are in the AFC South. C.J. Stroud is getting off to an unprecedentedly successful start of his career. Anthony Richardson, he's already hurt. Okay. And they would have been number 3. And, of course, the Trevor Lawrence, that era's already begun with Jacksonville. So they would be competing with the other two teams there in this division here. So that, I'm curious of whatever come about that. Pickle says maybe ship him off to Atlanta. That's what I was thinking, and that very well may happen. The trade deadline's already passed now. See, that's my whole point. They could have moved him. Today is the 7th, right? A week ago, they probably could have moved him before the deadline, even with the sprained ankle. Minnesota gave up a 6th and 7th round pick. One of them is conditional, I think, on his snaps. For Arizona's Josh Dobbs, a guy comes in and beats the Atlanta Falcons there. And that dreadful loss there I talked about earlier, could Tennessee have gotten a 5th round pick or a 4th round pick for Ryan Tannehill, even though he's going to be out a few more weeks? Josh Dobbs wasn't even expected to start Sunday. He was just brought in as a backup. The rookie did start. Atlanta knocks him out of the game. Dobbs comes in. The rest is history. Dobbs gets this ridiculous no prep time win on the road like that, and just now getting to know people in Minnesota. But you just got to wonder about the civil war in the locker room of the Titans between the brass and Mike Vrabel. Now, some people are saying, well, maybe you're just making – no, I feel like that. I think management wanted to go one way, and Vrabel wanted to go another way, and now they're kind of in this limbo. The truth of the matter is they should have either moved off of Henry and Tannehill in the offseason to free up money for other positions and have a better offensive line, or they should have simply traded them at the trade deadline last Tuesday on Halloween, but they did do neither, and now they're just going to let Tannehill walk. Tannehill's a backup, and they're getting nothing for him. Maybe they'll get some kind of conditional pick for him. Maybe, but then again, I don't know if they actually drafted him. I don't know how that works. But sometimes you get those conditional picks there. Either way, this era's begun. Will Levis, people I've talked to around town. I'm a courier. I drive in Nashville. Talked to another guy today. Robert, I think you've, Robert's been on the program. He works at Vanderbilt Hospital. He's cautiously optimistic. He wants to see what Levis can do. A lot of people that I talked to about Levis around town, their perspective is about what I said last Friday's program, that he looks like the talent. He could be the best quarterback they've had since Steve McNair. Just an early look at it, I've also said that maybe I was, a bit concerned about his injury history, but I looked and it looked like that he didn't really have that much of an injury history. He played through it last year. He had some terrible games last year at Kentucky, but he did have he didn't really have that big of injury problem as I thought to. So, he did transfer in college. By the way, I'm going to have Keith Engel back on the program. Keith is not a good, but a great college football guy. He'll be on tomorrow, by the way. Keith has made some really impressive predictions in college football, I'll say. He said something about he said he thought Will Levis was the best quarterback coming out of college. He thought he was better than Stroud and everybody else. That remains to be seen. Stroud is off to a well of a start. I just mentioned Stroud. Okay, Levis is not. He's not that far off though. He is not that far off of a start here. I thought I screenshotted this guy's. Maybe I didn't here. There's so much news going on today. and so many more signings, but that I didn't get it. I think it was just basically in reference to it didn't look that bad. But the fact that he got hurt in camp, that kind of really concerned me. But he was just a second round pick. You do want to get and see how much he plays the rest of the season. There's a lot of football left. We've got the rest of November. We've got December here. We've got what I want to say 8-9 games left. That's a pretty good sample size if you look at what they got here. You just hate it that they didn't get nothing out of Tannehill, and the truth of the matter is Tannehill has not won a playoff game since he signed that contract in 2020. People do not want to hear that, but that's the truth. When they were paying him $7 million in 2019, Tennessee gets the AFC Championship game. Did they pay him? Then they play Henry. Now, the more I look at Henry, I realize maybe he was worth it for everything they asked Henry to do, his conditioning. Matter of fact, maybe they bring Henry back next year and sign him to a modest $5 million per year, 2-year deal with incentives, put him up to 10, 12 million, something like that because of his leadership, his dual threat where he can catch out of the backfield, he can run straight forward. Maybe they could work out something modest like that with Henry for an aging running back and keep him here in Tennessee where he would be comfortable. But definitely, obviously, Tannehill will move on somewhere else. He probably will sign with Atlanta, Pickles, if Arthur Smith stays in Atlanta. Now, I don't know. The way Atlanta blew that game to Minnesota, I think if they do not make the playoffs, I think Arthur Blank may be 50-50 on firing the other Arthur Smith down in Atlanta. Pickle says Henry could be good trade bait maybe next year per se. I guess the new league year would start next year, but they can't do anything. I mean, they could tag him again and trade him, but I don't think they would want to do that though. Because they know that the other teams around the league know that Derrick Henry, they're not going to sign. They're not going to keep him on a franchise tag, which is what $12 million or something at his age. He's getting up there post 30 now. So I don't think that they would do that per se. Okay. So we'll see how this thing works out, man. I mean, it's an exciting time. Like I said, if you're more hot, they've got to play down in Tampa this coming up Sunday. And, I'm thinking to myself, there was one good game out of Baker Mayfield, and it was against Tennessee. He had 5 touchdowns. But for most of what I saw, Mayfield as an NFL player has been underwhelming. He throws the ball short. He thinks he's quicker out of the pocket than he is, and he still thinks that. I think Tennessee will probably beat them down there in Tampa. And like I mentioned yesterday, I think maybe Kyle Trash, Tampa will be looking at starting Trash, and they'll be in the line to get a quarterback as well, folks. And going back to Tennessee, as far as Tennessee is concerned, I was looking at their by the way, so Tennessee, if the season ended today, they'll be right back where they were last year, essentially. They picked 11th last year, and of course they've got Peter Sonorski. Looks to be a big hit so far. Everything I see and read about Sonorski at that guard, who also can play tackle, was a big hit. But this year they would pick 10th behind Denver and in front of, ironically, Atlanta, Pickles. Okay. And, here's Levis's. Levis played 13 games in 21. He had some really good stats here. Levis in college, his completion percentage in college, 60, 65, 66, and 60 there. And he had a quarterback rating of 151, 140. So he was pretty accurate, 19 and 10 last year. Looked terrible in some games, particularly the Tennessee game. Supposedly he's playing through some type of injury, and that made him look bad. So that that's just food for thought. But going back to Tennessee, so apparently, Pro Football Focus put out a mock draft, an updated mock draft with that 10th pick, and they got Tennessee taking an offensive tackle, Latham JC. I guess that means junior. Latham from Alabama. No, wait, that's the guy's name. JC Latham, offensive tackle from Alabama. This guy 6'6", 360 is a true people mover in a run game and moves much more fluid than you would expect for a player for his weight. He's a Mike Vrabel type of player. Now, I'll say this. Alabama offensive linemen hadn't been that good. I mean, they've been decent. Don't get me wrong. They're not every single one of them's terrible per se. You look at Jonas Williams, who's moved from left to right with Cincinnati because Orlando Brown beat him. But you look at guys like Evan O'Neal from that's with the Giants I was talking about yesterday. He's considered to be a bust at this point. He's taking shots at the media fans and everything, and he's getting destroyed out there. A lot of their linemen haven't really turned out to be offensive linemen, had to be mega stars. Now, that's just a mock draft. It's still November. A lot of stuff can happen. They can move up or down in the draft. There'll be other players available. This is a heavy tackle draft here, but Tennessee definitely wants to get, again, I've been saying this for 2 years, particularly with this team, because they've had the worst line as of last year, and I'm pretty sure they're not far from it this year. Even adding Andre Dillard, the backup, mind you, from the Eagles. They didn't pay him a lot of money because they're not sure if he's worth a lot of money. My guess is he's probably still a backup. They're going to go out and get a true left tackle, one that can hold down the fort for 8 to 12 years, or maybe a few more. You'd like to get a Lane Johnson, who's with the Eagles, or somebody a Trent Williams type of player, if you could get one. That would be my next step there if I'm the Tennessee Titans. Now, of course, maybe they make a trade for a player. I don't know because they're going to have a lot of money. They're second only to the Chicago Bears in salary cap space coming into next year because of expiring contracts and mainly Ryan Tannehill's. Okay. All righty then. Kyler Murray. And now speaking of the draft and everything. Now, this officially broke to this morning, this afternoon. Tuesday's when a lot of these teams make decisions. Who's going to be the quarterback? We're going to fire the coach. Who's going to be on IR? A lot of this stuff is done on Tuesday afternoon. Okay. And Murray, he'll officially be back as a starter Sunday and ironically, they'll be playing Atlanta. They'll be playing the Falcons here. Now, my guess is watching Jonathan Gannon offense is similar to Shane Steichen. Wasn't sure if he was going to go that route, but he's going with the same route that Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen are going with. They're going to use that Philadelphia type of offense for Kyler Murray. And Michael Bidwell, although reluctant to do so because they owe him a lot of money, Bidwell being the owner there of Arizona, he's wanting to see what Murray looks like in this offense. I think he's a little bit on the fence, lukewarm, if you may, of playing him. Because I think that the fact that when they made that trade with Houston, so they've got the 15th pick. Houston's winning more games than they thought. But right now, with the Bears winning the other day, a few games ago, now you're looking at the fact that they've got the number 1 overall pick. This is a very heavily quarterback draft here, okay? And so he's wanting to see what Murray can do. Now I'm starting to hear reports that maybe maybe they want to keep Murray. I think that's all nonsense. I think that he really, meaning Bidwell, wants to play Murray to showcase him, to use him for trade bait. And so what if Sunday, what if he destroys? They've got a legit left tackle now. That was Parrish Jackson. I think he was a left tackle from Ohio State. I'm reading it. He's held up pretty well there with Murray. So if they stomp out Atlanta, which they could on the road, what if Atlanta looks at Kyler Murray and says, man, we can use him next year in our team. They've got the number 1 pick. Maybe we make a trade and get a Kyler Murray. They go out and get another top-notch quarterback. By the way, I read today, Schroeder Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, he's going to stay. There are reports are now that, and I've told you this a few weeks ago, but that now there's actual reports saying that he will stay there. Now, nothing's been official, that he will stay with his dad for another year at Colorado. I kind of figured that because I know that Travis Hunter can't come out until next year, the star player down there, up there in Colorado. So, and then now we know what Caleb Williams, his father, said, that Caleb may stay another year at USC if he don't like where he's going. He's using his now. Cliff Kingsbury used to be the former coach of Arizona, and all these reports about how bad of an owner Bidwell is. He's a crappy people's person, hard to deal with. Since he took over for his dad a few years ago, he's a pain in the rear end to work for. So now you're looking at maybe Drake May or Michael Penix, right? They could go there. So you got to say, well, is Kyler Murray, are these players better than Kyler Murray? Michael Penix does look that part here. He's got more touch. He's 6'1". Murray's, tiny, 5'9". We don't know how tall Murray is. Some say he's 5'10", others say he's 5'9". Who in the bleep knows how tall he really is, you know? But I do think that it's this is interesting to see. This is going to be interesting to see what the reports will be once Murray starts playing in this offense for Arizona. Part of me thinks that they wanted to shut him down, but maybe he would say, hey, listen, I want to go out there and play. You know, I want to go out there and play. Yeah. So they're sitting there at 1-8 with the number 1 pick. The Bears got the number 2 at 1-7 and the number 3 at 2-7. Remember, they've got Carolina's pick there. Remember, Carolina got the upset the other day over Houston a couple of weeks back. But if you look at the remaining schedule for Arizona, Atlanta at home, at Houston, the Rams. By the way, Rams sound Carson Wentz. So I guess Stafford's going to be out for a while. Carson Wentz will be playing. We'll see how he works out in Sean McVay's system. They play at Pittsburgh, and then they do play against the Bears, and of course they got Seattle at home and San Francisco to finish out their season there. So it's going to be interesting to see. Yeah, Pickles says Henry to the Ravens. That might happen in the off season. The trade deadline's already passed. That would probably happen in March per se. When the new season begins. So that is a story to monitor. And it's funny, I wouldn't really want to watch Arizona. Now I want to see how he plays in that system, how healthy he is. That'll be a game I'll circle. Because they may go on a winning streak for all we know. And then all of a sudden, again, they might be like, well, okay, let's check out. Let's see what our younger players look like. I'm very cynical of a lot of owners and management around the NFL when it comes to trying to get draft picks and higher draft choices and tanking. We know what goes on. Remember a few years ago when the Eagles played their third string guy and ended up losing that game, and it hurt the Giants. It got the Washington in the playoffs that year back in 2020, and people made a big fuss about it. But, hey, it is what it is for right now. maybe one of these days they will bring in do a lottery system like you do in the NBA, folks. So, okay. So that leads me to the Ravens, to my Power Five here, folks. Every Tuesday I do this. I just look at the Power Five as who's playing the best right now. My five best teams. If the playoffs started, say this weekend, for example, say if it started on Saturday and Sunday, I love those wild card games they put on Saturday and Sunday. Pickles, they've always been pretty good. So this is my Power Five today. Okay. All right. Now, Jacksonville. I've got them at 5. Now, Jacksonville's won 5 straight. 3 of the 5 have been on the road. Teams would put Detroit, but they were blown out by Baltimore. Jacksonville beat a relatively healthy Baltimore team last year. Like I said, I would put Detroit ahead of them, but you got to look at the fact that Baltimore blew out Detroit a few weeks ago, and Jacksonville beat Baltimore late last season there. Jonathan Allen, the edge rusher, he's still 5th in sacks. And, of course, I talked about that 7 touchdowns in the last 3 games there for Travis Etienne. You still got Ridley there, and you've got the Christian Kirk there at the deep routes for Jacksonville. By the way, huge game for Jacksonville, folks, coming up Sunday against San Francisco. Now, Jacksonville was off last week. Their last win was against Pittsburgh. Went up to Pittsburgh and handled them pretty smoothly there. Now, of course, they were off this past week, and they're going to play at home against a team that's lost 3 straight in that 49ers. Now, that 49er matchup, I'll have to look and see, is Trent Williams going to be back? I expect him to be back, but I want to make sure we won't get those injury reports till later. But right now, as of today, on the 7th of November, I think Jacksonville's a top 5 team in the NFL right now. Okay. Number 4, Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati beat San Francisco and beat Buffalo decisively 2 weeks in a row. Okay. Burrow, he looks great. The defense looks like last year. The defense leads the league. They're tied, Cincinnati, for the league in takeaways on defense. 9 in the entire league. This Lou Anarumo, I think between him and Steve Spagnuolo of Kansas City are the 2 best defensive coordinators as of today in the NFL. I really do think so. We looked at Kansas City last week. Geez, look what they did to Miami for hash. Completely shut them out. And Miami was healthy as they've been in a long time. But Cincinnati, like I said, 9 lead the league and turnovers created by Lou Anarumo. Seems a step ahead of offenses there. Love the balance. Love the play of Burrow. Completely healed of that calf injury. Would be in the playoffs. Matter of fact, I think if they stay healthy as they are today, I think they can catch anybody in that division. That's include Baltimore. They still got to play Baltimore again. That they still have a lot of divisional play to play, actually, per se. There's a lot of football left. We're not even till Thanksgiving yet. So I think they're the number 4 team, could be the number 1 towards the end. Going to stick by the fact that I think they're going to win the Super Bowl over the 49ers. But as of right now, if they start this week, I'd put them about 4th. And that may be even a little bit low if you ask me, folks. Okay. Philadelphia. Now, you say Philadelphia, they got the best record. They're 8-1. Record-wise, or 7, I can't remember. Record-wise, they 8-1. They should be number 1. But remember, the last 2 games, they were down. They were down early in the last 2 games. One at home and 1 on the road. Plus, they got the best roster in the league as a whole. I've talked about that ad nauseum. But I noticed that Jalen Hurts has been hobbling the last two games. You know, we talked about the games they got to play down the stretch, including, by the way, when they take their bye week this week, so does Kansas City, folks. Kansas City will take their bye week this week as well. They play Kansas City. I want to say a Monday night game. It's just Sunday or Monday night. They play Kansas City. They play the 49ers later. They play the Cowboys again. They got to go at Seattle and play there. I do think, and I'm not here to, cause any harm. I'm just calling balls as strikes. If they keep playing the way they're doing with Jalen Hurts, he's going to get hurt and miss games, folks. Between that San Francisco front, Kansas City, he's going to get hurt. He's going to get hurt. He's going to miss games. He missed games last year. Remember, he had the MVP sewed up last year, but remember, he got hurt in the Bears game last year. And when he missed, they lost. Okay. So I think that is my concern of Philadelphia, but they're still number 3. Okay. Number 2, Kansas City playing like that, rebounding from their loss, man. I mean, that was really impressive going overseas like that. And that Patrick Mahomes wasn't 100% from that flu he got, because it was said he had the flu last Saturday, the Saturday before last. That's, 8 days later. He's probably still a little bit woozy from the flu that he had. And then they go on the road over there in Frankfurt, Germany. God, what an awful trip. But they handle Miami, and the Miami's never really in the game. I mean, they were up 21-0 against Miami. Seemed like they got a little bored. Miami comes back, but they come up short. Defense played great. Had the best offense in the league statistically. The Miami Dolphins shut them out in the first half, man. I mean, again, this is Brady and Belichick 2.0. A lot of people don't want to hear that because a lot of us got bored with that Brady Belichick combo. But hey, look, man, you got to beat them eventually at some point. People can't complain about that. So got them at number 2. Now I put Ravens at number 1 this week because, the last 2 teams they played were in first place in their divisions. And yes, they're NFC teams. Yes, Lamar had the 17-1 record, but they dominated them. They dominated 38-6 Detroit. They dominated 37-3 Seattle teams. 2 playoff teams. Didn't beat them. They dominated them. They lead the league in sacks here. Lamar is anywhere from he's been in the top 5 all year in completion and QBR and quarterback rating here. So they don't have that many holes right now. Now, I don't know if I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl. Again, who's the Power 5 this week? Gotta give them some credit playing that dominant. I mean, now they're playing Cleveland. Cleveland's got 2 tackles down, man. So Deshaun Watson, the Stefanski, come Sunday, he's going to have to put in a very safe package for Deshaun Watson so he's not hurt again by that Baltimore Raven pass rush. His left tackle is going to be out for a while. His right tackle's already been out for the season, and they're going against the hottest team in the NFL right now, So that's one of those deals. Good luck. More power to you. Okay. Now, Antonio Pierce. There's been rumors, and I'm going to play a soundbite here, of Antonio Pierce is the former New York Giant, played on the 2007 New York Giants team that beat that Patriot team in the Super Bowl. I mean, David and Goliath. And I just talked about this yesterday, right? But the way the Cowboys played the Eagles, I just talked about how they had that attitude that they could beat that Patriot team at the end of the season, meaningless game, and they're playing like it's a Super Bowl. The Patriots barely beat them to go 16-0 last year, right? Okay, saying all this because there was a grievance the Thursday before the Monday that the Raiders played the Lions, and ultimately Josh McDaniels was fired. Okay, let me play you a soundbite from Jay Glazer of Fox Sports breaking down this team meeting and the interaction between Josh McDaniels and Antonio Pierce here. And I've got a few questions to ask, but I've got to play this soundbite to give you full context of how that went down. Here's Jay Glazer from NFL on Fox last Sunday.
As part of this transition. Well, to piggyback off of what Howie was just saying, there was such a big disconnect with the players there and Josh McDaniels that players recently were going upstairs to the owner, Mark Davis, to tell them what their problems were. However, the big thing was this last Thursday, there was this big airing of the grievance meeting, and players just unloaded on Josh McDaniels from captain to player to player. And finally, Josh McDaniels actually had Antonio Pierce get up and speak on behalf of him and the coaches. When Antonio Pierce got up there, he said, look, guys, we have to have our own culture. It's got to be about culture here. And we also have to look at it. And he brought up the old Giants team that beat the Patriots, Josh McDaniels' team, in the Super Bowl in 2007 season. He said, no matter who we played, we thought we could beat them. We had a game plan that we could beat them. We had to believe that, and that's not here. We have to believe it here at the Raiders. We could beat anybody. When he finishes up that speech, everybody thinks they're great, except for Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels then goes over to him and says, don't ever talk about the Patriots like that. And then you really saw how divided that building got. That got up to Mark Davis, and I think Mark Davis looked at it and go, okay, I'm going to choose the guy who believes that we can win every single week, and that's what his plan's going to be. And by the way, this is not just a throwaway for Antonio Pierce where, he's just going to coach out the rest of the season. He has a shot to keep this job. That's Mark Davis's mindset.
Okay, now a few things there to decipher what was said there in that report by Jay Glazer here of Fox Sports. Okay, now the reason why Antonio Pierce said that, what I just said just a second ago about Kansas City, they're like the 2.0 Patriot team right now. Man, they're losing players left and right. Free agency, injury, sick, and they're still winning at a high clip. They've already got 2 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes, his first road divisional loss came a couple weeks ago against Denver. He's been in the league 5 years. Brady don't even have that. Brady does not have that. He can't say that. That's unbelievable, okay? That's my part. Maybe Pierce was thinking, hey, look, man, we've got the Patriots 2.0. Another part is, why does Josh McDaniels, why does he care 2 bleeps about the team that he used to play for? Whatever it takes to get this team to play well and win should be able to play well and win. Who cares about that stuff? That tells you he's a lot like Matt Patricia. He's sensitive. He's not a leader of men, a leader. He is a guy that's probably good at what he does, being a coordinator, or he's just not. He doesn't seem like a people. This goes all the way back to the run-in he had with Jay Cutler when he was a young coach. Okay, so that's all on Mark Davis. This guy, Josh McDaniels, said, I'm going to the Colts. They're about ready to do the press conference. It's going on. This has been reported for days. Then he says, no, I'm not going to the Colts. I'm staying. Flaky. Okay? Very flaky. Second part of what Jay Glazer just said. All right? This is where I think that there's some red flags with Antonio Pierce. Why did Antonio Pierce, okay, you heard the last end of that, right? Let me repeat what was said. Josh McDaniels went to Antonio Pierce after the meeting. Let's play the last end of that. Let's do this again.
As part of this transition, how divided that building got up to Mark Davis, and I think Mark Davis looked at it and go, Josh McDaniels then goes over to him and says, "Don't ever talk about the Patriots like that." And then you really saw how divided that building got. That got up to Mark Davis. Seventh season, he said, "No matter who we played, we thought we could beat them. We had a game plan that we could beat them. We had to believe that, and that's not here. We have to believe it here at the Raiders. We could beat anybody." When he finishes up that speech, everybody thinks they're great, except for Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels then goes over to him and says, "Don't ever."
Goes over to him. So did Antonio Pierce? How did it get back to the players? That's my question. How did this? So it looks to me that Antonio Pierce went back and told the players what Josh McDaniels said to him. Hey, look, don't ever say that again. I coached the pay. You know, two things can be wrong at the same time. So Pickle says Pierce stole his deal with the Raiders. So then somebody goes up and tells Mark Davis. And there's two ways to look at that, right? There's two ways to look at that. Yeah, hey, I'm the owner. I've got an open door policy. I'm approachable. Yes, that's true. Or I'm the owner. I have an open door policy, but I'm really saying I'm undercutting my management and my coaching staff. You know? You're going around them to go to me. I've hired them to deal with you. So that's that a lot of that happened with Jerry Jones in the past. Maybe it still does, and the Dallas Cowboys, and that goes with that dysfunction of this team. Now, I just said maybe he gets hired as the actual head coach. They won 30-6 over the Giants Sunday. Now, here's a little tidbit. There's some red flags with him. Last year when I had former Arizona State alumni and assistant coach, not for Arizona State, Jim Jeffcoat. Okay, Antonio Pierce, according to Jim Jeffcoat, who is really in tune with these things, and he keeps up with this stuff. He played for Arizona State. He played when Barry Bonds was playing for Arizona State. Jim Jeffcoat, this is an exclusive on my program. This is what could separate me from the competition while I'm about to play you. But according to Jim, and I'll let you hear the soundbite in a minute, that Pierce played a big hand in getting Arizona State in trouble and getting their head coach there, Herm Edwards, fired. Listen up. This was from last September. Jim Jeffcoat here on Antonio Pierce in his college days. Listen up.
Edwards, by the way, I know he's 68. I'm always been a Herm Edwards fan. You play to win the game. What's your thoughts on Herm Edwards being fired from Arizona State?
Well, you got to remember what he did, and he let go on. First of all, I was upset because he let Antonio Pierce come in, a U of A, University of Arizona guy, and come in and destroy. Basically, he destroyed that program. He was doing illegal stuff, and that bothered me. Why would you let somebody from the rival school, and they're only 100 miles apart, and they are intense rivals, take over the program and do the things that Antonio Pierce did? Antonio Pierce is at the Raiders right now, and you saw what happened to the Raiders. You saw what they did. They were up 21 points and lost the game. He was the linebacker coach. Yeah, they imploded. He did that at Arizona State. Everybody talks about he recruited, but he recruited illegally. Yeah, he recruited illegally. I mean, he did. Arizona and Herm let this go on. You can't be in the dark about what was going on. Yeah, he just turned. He turned the other eye. And he let this go on, and it's going to bother me because he didn't do it the right way.
Okay, so Jim Jeffcoat essentially saying that Antonio Pierce has ethical issues. Okay, it's a little unethical from the way, like Pickle said, stole his deal. With it looks like he just went back and told the players what Josh McDaniels said. Then he went back and told, from the outside looking in, he went back and told Mark Davis the stuff with Josh. And I'm not defending Josh McDaniels. I went on ad nauseum about the Josh McDaniels not really being head coaching material. Okay, but let's go with Mark Davis. Let's go with the Raiders. The Raiders, folks, have had let's go back 20 years. The last few years of Al Davis's life when he died in 2011. I mean, since John Gruden was traded away to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they get to that Super Bowl that year in 2001 where the Buccaneers beat them, they've had 12 coaches between Al Davis doing this crazy that way. He hired Lane Kiffin, this 34-year-old Lane Kiffin. Then he abruptly fires him in the middle of the season, puts out this PowerPoint, freaks people out. Don't really question too much on Lane Kiffin. Now we found out there was some shadiness about Lane Kiffin at the time. But, you've got 12 coaches in 20 years, And my guess is, like I was just saying, I don't think Mark Davis did the homework of what I just told you about in too much depth about Josh McDaniels. And it's looking like he may hire Antonio Pierce, a linebacker coach, to become this guy. He don't have a plan. His plan is however he feels that day. I just get that sense. He's paying $80 million. He's paying $80 million to two former coaches. Okay, $40 million to Josh McDaniels, who hasn't proved anything as a head coach, And part of me thinks that maybe he hires Pierce because he was reluctant to fire. He was reluctant to fire or urged to resign, in air quotes. John Gruden urged him to resign when those comments came out that he said in a email during the investigation of the Commanders and Daniel Snyder, because they were racial related, whatever. I thought that he shouldn't have done it. I think he maybe could have fined Gruden or something, and Gruden could have did some PR stuff there and kept his job. That's what I would have done. But he didn't do that. He didn't stand strong. They worked out some type of arrangement, and Gruden did resign. And maybe he's trying to play the woke card and say, well, Pierce is a black guy. Maybe I'll just keep Pierce. Forget about the red flags I just played that Jim Jeffcoat said about Antonio Pierce's ethical issues going back to college. And then they said he wasn't a big fan of Pierce as a linebacker coach last year at the Raiders. Okay. So yeah, Pickle says they're constant drama, man. Not to mention the fact that they're playing in Vegas, that they've had the Henry Ruggs situation, that they had the player who got the DUI at the rest stop last year, or maybe the year before that. Okay. You had a player threatening people so bad they had to cut him. All this happened in the last 2 years. And really, you could say that Jimmy Garoppolo was a controversial signing because of his injury history. The Josh Jacobs thing with the holdout. So it's one thing after another. You're not sure when they'll get it together. Like I was saying, maybe you keep a coach, the next coach you hire, you let him stay his whole contract, right? You let him stay his whole contract just to show you got some kind of stability. But I don't know if he's got that kind of patience. Like I was saying yesterday, he didn't earn that money. He's quick to spend Dad's money that was left to him, paying $80 million to John Gruden and Josh McDaniels. But my thing is, I think he'll ignore those red flags about Pierce and there'd be a good chance that he'll hire him, not unless somebody more talented comes along later. But if I'm a big name coach, a Harbaugh, somebody, I'm not taking that Raider job. It's too flaky, man. It's too flaky. One thing, they don't even know who the general manager is. He ain't hired a general manager. They fired the general manager when they fired Josh McDaniels. He did. Okay? So as the world turns in Oakland, in the Las Vegas. So just another tidbit here. Martavis Bryant, who's been out of the league since 2018, PEDs and stuff was a substance. He got suspended. He signed on to the Dallas Cowboys practice squad. That's an interesting, and I just mentioned Carson Wentz will be back with the he'll be back with the he'll be with the Rams. So curious to see how Wentz will look here. Michigan, by the way, I'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow, but this just broke. Athletic also reported that Michigan sent documents to the Big Ten and the NCAA showing Purdue, Ohio State, and Rutgers were sharing the Wolverine signs among staff members. Sources tell Nicole Orbach and Bruce Feldman there. So that's an interesting story. I'll talk about that a little bit more. Plus the college football playoff. It's got, Ohio State, Georgia number 2, Michigan number 3, and Florida State number 4, Washington 5, Oregon, Texas, and Alabama at number 8. Now, of course, if Alabama runs the table and beats Georgia, they'll be in the playoff. I'll get a little bit more into the college game tomorrow. And again, tomorrow, 30 minutes past the hour, the ultimate college football guy, Keith Engel. A lot of his predictions. He warned me about Penn State's offense not getting the ball field. Totally right about that. They got exposed in the Ohio State game. Maybe he's right about Georgia winning the 3rd straight national championship. I'll ask him about that. Now, of course, I gotta ask him about the Oklahoma game. They got another loss last week. Oklahoma State beat them last Saturday, so they're pretty much out of it now. They've lost two pretty rough games there for Oklahoma. Lost to Kansas, and then they lost to Oklahoma State. Not sure what's going to happen to Texas. Texas did not play Archman, and they played this other guy while Quinn Ewers is out, the star quarterback. So I'm asking about that. I'm asking about all these quarterbacks that are possibly positioned to be first-round quarterbacks in the NFL if drafted. Now, Schroeder Sanders is one of those, and he looks like he's not going to go. He's going to stay with his dad in Colorado. So if you guys like the show, share the show. Otherwise, I'll be back on tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll get a little bit more into the college game here on Sports Scope. Have a good night, everybody.